Hi, I'm Daniel Kelman, and this is the Carry On Podcast, where we find out absolutely everything we possibly can about how to carry on growing, carry on building, and carry on succeeding. Today, we're here with an internet marketing expert and marketing expert in general, Gabe Bautista, who has a very, very interestingly scary premonition book, which is based on positioning your business to win, and that most businesses fail within the first 5 minutes, but it takes them 5 years to realize it. Thank you so much for coming on today, Gabe.
Thanks, Danny.
I'm partially terrified and excited,
Yes.
all at the same time. So tell us a bit, starting first and foremost, about the title.
So the title is exactly that. People ask, "Is this a metaphor? Is it? Do you mean kind of? Is this you're trying to scare people, right?" Yeah. But no, we find that in the first 5 minutes, those first 5 minutes when you're conceiving of your idea, that process can make or break a business. Yeah. And then it just takes them 3 to 5 years of agonizing pain and going through all their funds and the VC funds and the investors and their family and their credit cards until they finally are out of business. And it comes down to this: are you positioned correctly or you're not? And if you don't, well, that is the strategy. See, Sun Tzu says that 2,500 years ago, he says that tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And so if you don't have the strategy right, if you haven't mapped that out, and that's what positioning is, then no matter what kind of tactics, whether it's internet marketing,
you can throw everything at it.
You can throw everything at it and all the money in the world if you want to. Yeah. And if it's not well positioned, it'll ultimately fail.
That can't be a very fun conversation to have with people.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you do have to say that your baby's ugly. Yeah. Right? And as a consultant, I'm working at turnarounds, doing in businesses, I sometimes get to be the guy that says, "Look, you have an ugly baby." But really, I mean, if you think about it, you want to find out as quickly as possible, because what you can do is pivot. And we talk about it in the book, which is what is that new position that you can go. Now you can't go from zero to hero, but what you can do is say, okay, like it seems like this won't be that successful, and what is the next thing that I can do to start rotating, right? When you talk about a pivot, what is a pivot? A pivot is a rotation around a center, which changes your direction and your trajectory. So what is that? And if you do that, you can. Basically, you might have spent some money that you shouldn't have, but at least you don't spend any more time, which is more valuable.
So people watching now that could be going, what are kind of the number 1, 2, and 3 key traits that you see from somebody that's maybe positioned incorrectly?
So this is a strategic concept. This means that it can be applied to all these different levels of analysis. It can be applied to a person in their career, inside of a corporation, for example. We have a coaching client who's a senior executive at a waste management company, and he's applied a lot of these concepts inside of a big corporation. It can be applied to a product. It can be applied to a service. It can be applied to a company, right? To an industry, even to a country, right? Because again, this is strategic. So one of the first things you have to ask yourself is, am I having a difficulty differentiating myself from everybody else? Let's say you're a sales professional. You may be in real estate, right? You may be in financial services, right? The question is always like, well, why should somebody talk to me as opposed to the other 30,000 realtors in the area?
So basically, people watching right now that are finding friction with their sales process, or they're finding that they're not able to stand out, then those are the people that should be diagnosed with having a problem.
Well, you have a problem with position. Exactly. If you're always wondering, well, why, I'm smart, I'm capable, I'm hardworking, why are more people listening to me? You might watch a video and you might say, well, why are the people watching that guy's video and paying attention to him? They should be paying attention to me. Yeah. Well, chances are that guy is well positioned for whatever he's at, right? And if you haven't worked on that, we tend to think that, look, if I'm smart, if I'm good, if I work hard, people eventually will know. They'll eventually realize and give me the credit that I'm due. But I'm sorry to say, this is not in planet Earth. It doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is that the fundamental problem of why positioning is important is that somebody asked me, well, Gabe, explain to me positioning simply, like in the most simple terms you can. And I explained it this way. I said, in simple terms, positioning is the way in which humans organize information in their head. That's it. That's all it is, right? And that's why you have to start there, because especially in an over-communicated society that we live right now, it's never been more important to make sure you're positioned correctly, because if not, people are always trying to figure out what are all the things that are irrelevant, what are all the things that they don't have to pay attention to. And chances are, when your information, when your business proposal, when your idea, product, or service comes across their desk, their mental desk, they're going to be biased towards ignoring it, because they don't want to have to take another idea, another thing. So one of the reasons
they don't have to learn.
Why? If I already have a realtor, right? If I already have somebody in my mind that is my friend, is the one that I know, or is the one from my town, or is the one that's always advertising everywhere, why do I have to go out and make a new decision that I don't know? Maybe it's risky. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Right? If bias, and I wrote in my social media the other day, bias is prepackaged decisions. When we all have a bias, people talk about biases like it's a bad thing. Like you shouldn't have biases. You cannot help but have biases.
It's how we organize information. It's how we survive.
How could you, right? If you don't know what's more important than something else, then how do you know that you have to do that as opposed to something else? And that's a bias, right? We lean towards certain things, so that's not necessarily bad. And so since you have that, what are the kinds of things you can do? For example, one of the kinds of things you can do is you can tell people, look, most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. So when the minute that I say that, people go, wait, what? Now, some people might say, oh, I don't believe that, you're full of this, or,
But then it starts the conversation.
Maybe it does,
So what you're saying to people at home, I think, is it can not be you. It could be how you're positioned within. So maybe it's repackaging and repurposing yourself. And we've been having conversations with this, and you've been helping me out with it quite a lot. And then you're able to focus more on exactly what you are and what you want, and that way it makes it an awful lot easier for people to buy from you.
Exactly. I mean, you do a lot of different stuff. I do a whole lot of different stuff. I'm involved in at least at any given point 7 or 8 businesses. When somebody asks me, hey Gabe, what do you do? I can't just unload all that on them, because first of all, they don't really care. Right? What they're asking for is, look, I have this thing in my head, right? And we call it in the book, is a bias map, right? And I want to know where to put you. Okay? Help me, right? That's when somebody asks, what do you do? Or what do you do for a living? Or, all those kinds of things. They're trying to organize in their head, where can they place you, so now they have some context. Because positioning is about context. If you think about, when you say, well, not only positioning, people think that positioning is a marketing word, and it can be, but it's not just a marketing word. It presupposes location, right? The position of something, right? I'm going to position this book close to the edge of the table, right? I'm going to reposition it close to the center of the table.
Put my business in this location.
That's right.
Because it's positioned in a nice area, in an XYZ area,
and depending on the area, does that say something about your business?
Yeah.
Does it say it explicitly, or does it say it implicitly? Right? And so when you do those kinds of things, you go, wow, this makes sense, because again, meaning is contextual, and that's what we want, right? Depending on, a word may mean something. You might look it up in the dictionary, but then a word may mean something completely different if it's surrounded, if it's in position of other kinds of words. It changes everything completely. So your business, your product, your service, your idea, your concept, your career, or as an individual, means something different to somebody depending on where everything else is.
No, definitely. That's like when they do those mental tricks where they'll mention every word around it. and then they'll ask somebody what they're thinking of, and the person will be thinking of the thing, even though they've been pre-programmed in the neuro-linguistic programming or whatnot. They pre-programmed them to think about this thing, even though they've never mentioned it by mentioning all the words around them. So I've read through the book, really enjoyed it. There's kind of a few key points that I wanted to pick up on and ask you questions about. One that I really enjoyed was winning is a binary function. All the zeros are losing and all the ones are winning, and you can't win them all. Can you explain a bit to us about your thought process behind that, and binary winning and losing, and binary as a concept?
Well, I mean, we're kind of going against the grain when it comes to, look, everything is going to be fine, just persevere, keep going, never give up. And it's like, I mean, there's something to be said for, don't give up, right? I mean, if you give up, then it's over, right? But if you look at those motivational posters that says, don't give up on your dreams, right? If you just flip behind it, if you look carefully, if you look closely, it says maybe you're doing the wrong thing, right? And that is the quintessential problem of existence. If you're digging in a hole, right, because you're trying to get oil, it doesn't matter how hard you dig if there's no oil there, right? And so if you want to win, and I think we all want to win, right? Whatever it is that we're doing, you don't have to. This is not necessarily an adversarial kind of thing, right? But what you got to know is that if things aren't working, those are zeros for you, right? They won't magically become into ones. You don't get 20% of a customer, right? You don't know. You either get it or you don't get it, right?
You don't get 20% of a customer. I think that's, you either get a customer or you don't get 10%. I love that. And I think what we've been trying to, and what I take away from that is with Carry On, we've been saying, get married to the journey of succeeding, not always to the idea. If it's a zero, then take it as a zero, and then try and find a one, as opposed to just, kind of knocking that down. But I love that. I think that's so poignant. You don't get 20% of a customer.
You don't.
I think
you either get it or you don't. And when you, whether you do or you don't, that's feedback. And you should take it as so and say, okay, I'm doing something right, or maybe I need to change something. Is there something that I need to change? Now, that's not so clear always, and you don't want to, go hastily make a decision, right? But if you're not getting traction, or getting very little traction doing something, chances are that there's a pivot, there's a change, there's something you can do to improve your odds, which is what you want.
And I love this. Another quote is, there's 7.4 billion biases that the individual likes or dislikes, and positioning is knowing the combination between those biases. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Well, we touched on biases, and that's exactly the point, is that everybody has biases, right? And when people, we tend to associate with people that have biases that are like ours, right? And that's what culture is. Culture is a collective bias, right? And where we all, and this is actually a good thing, because what we want to know is we want to be able to predict in a crazy, unpredictable, busy world. We want to add as much predictability to that world as possible. And we do that through customs, through tradition, which is
through language.
Which is another. These are biases, right?
And I think that fits perfectly into business, because it's impossible to position yourself in business if you don't speak the language of that business. If you don't know the culture, the etiquette,
and not just the words, right?
Exactly.
Not just the words. It's not just
the
about
timing and the
Exactly. So in other words, you don't just go, well, I'm a really good salesman, or I sell real estate, I bet I can sell yachts. That should be fine. It's like, no, you make those decisions at your extreme peril, because you can't just assume that you can do that, right? Just because people, there's a lot of out there, people who are or believers or priests, right? Advocates, evangelists of brand. They say brand. It's all about the brand. It's all about the brand. And I say they're close but no cigar, because brand is the tactic behind the strategy. The positioning is the strategy. Then you craft a brand that fits into that position, right? But you still have some limitations, right? If it was really all about the brand, then Apple can sell burgers. Why not? Apple Burger. They're a great brand. They're probably good. See, that breaks the glass around their position,
Yeah.
And companies are always doing this. They're always trying to stretch this.
No pun intended by breaking the glass.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So
we've all broken some glass on some Apple products before.
Well,
And it's funny that you even say break the glass because you're already associating glass with an Apple product. You know, it's the mind works in extremely interesting ways. And I love this chapter because I think it's something that people don't talk about a lot, which is the barriers to success.
Mm-hmm.
And there's these it goes through all these different barriers, but what would you probably say the most common barrier you see for people that they have, that's the most difficult one for them to get through?
I'd say it's hard to pick. It's probably between two, and if we have time we'll talk two. But the first one is they lack clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
People tend to want to do a lot of things. I'm the same way. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do a lot of things. You're an entrepreneur. We want to do a lot of things, right? And businesses, they're sometimes filled with entrepreneurs and they want to do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
But you got to know that every time you say, well, I do this and this and this and this, you lose focus, right? You don't all of a sudden have more. No, actually you have less, because now you're competing essentially against yourself, because then the person is trying to define, okay, wait, so you do this and this, and okay, I'm just gonna simplify and say you're that type of guy, or you know, you sell this or this product,
or you don't know what you're doing,
or literally so
even
confusing.
worse.
I'm like, okay, we'll just put you somewhere else.
And this is some advice that Gabe gave me personally: was shut up, Danny. Do carry on. You know, so as if I'm going to take that advice, that's the principle I'm going to take, is only ever focus on marketing, selling one thing within your brand as opposed to multiple things, which I think was some very difficult advice for me to hear, because I am an entrepreneur and I do like doing 10 things at once, which he explained was okay, as long as the forward facing is always one consistent message. And that's where we found is creating the podcast and the Carry On brand all around that. That's where that fit in perfectly and positioned me to talk about things that I want to talk about. So that was a massive help. And I think you were the first person to ever be able to break through the glass, as you will, as you said there. But I think that's a very difficult thing for people to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
It's the essence of.
And they lose.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I mean, you're cutting off. There's a reason why the word decide rhymes with suicide or homicide.
Yeah.
Right. That Latin, that is a Latin root there at the end that means to cut off.
Yeah.
Right. To cut. Right. And why is that? Because when we decide to do something, we're cutting every other option.
When you decide to be in a relationship.
Yeah. That's exactly.
That's a good.
Is the quintessential demonstration of bias. You say I'm gonna ignore everything else, but this is what I have right now, and this is the only way that you can make anything work. So for a lot of businesses, what they need to do is do that. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do some of the other things, right? Yeah. But you got to change the face, right? A lot of people, they don't know Procter & Gamble. They don't know who's Procter & Gamble, you know, but they know Gillette, right? They know dish soap Dawn, right? They know Tampax, right? All these brands are inside of Procter & Gamble, but they're smart. They don't say Procter & Gamble shaving razors. They don't do that. They give it a separate entity all on its own, right? To keep it clear in the mind of the customer. And they have a bunch of number one brands, right? And that's what you want to do.
And then it's okay to do multiple products as long as it's under the same category, if it's in the same realm like Apple does. You know, because I think that's what a lot of people can be thinking when you say that. Well, what if I do? Okay, it's fine to offer multiple services as long as they're in the same realm. Once you start,
and even then,
be very careful.
Be very careful, especially if you have massive resources like Apple. They can afford to do that because what do you think Apple stands for? What do you think they stand? When you think of Apple, what do you think about this? Is just a question. What do you think?
I think it's like, funnily enough for me, is I think it stands for almost peace within products. Like, it's a very calm, natural, normal user interface is on Apple products. That's kind of
Simple?
what. Yeah, it's just or natural.
Natural.
Yeah, so that's probably actually going back to what I think. It's probably
Yeah.
It's natural. It's an Apple. It's natural.
So
it's kind
so,
of
so so for you in your head, how does it fit that they sell laptops and they sell smartwatches and they sell iPhones and they sell, how does that feel? Does it feel normal to you? Does it feel
because
okay?
I feel like they're doing a natural extension of the human imagination.
Okay.
That's actually probably a pretty good sell for them.
There you go. But if they were to do Apple hamburger, would that be too much, or do you think that's still okay?
It's if it was like a biochemically enhanced hamburger, possibly.
Interesting.
You never know.
Why are you saying that?
Because it fit in with the brand, right? It's taking things and bringing out the next version of it, I guess.
And I think that's exactly what Apple stands for. I think Apple stands for innovative technology.
Yeah.
Right? Now they haven't been as innovative as they were under Steve, but they stands for that kind of things. That's why. So when you think about what are the fundamental categories of products, of services, of companies, the fundamental categories are not the ones you might read in this Wall Street Journal, although I read the Wall Street Journal every day.
You got it here with you somewhere.
Yeah, it's over there. The fundamental categories is not necessarily the industry. The fundamental categories is what people in their head have you as. And I think people in their head have Apple as, well, they're kind of a technology company that does like some new cool stuff. Yeah. If you had to boil it down, that's what they do, right? Now, so you can do that. However, the more again, a lot of businesses that I work with are sub 25 million a year businesses or around there. Yeah. And so they have finite resources. And so for those types of businesses, I say, look, since you have a finite number of resources of people and the money and the time, if you focus on something on a clear position before expanding out, like really focus on that, you'll get a better return than trying to go, here I would do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because then everything takes away from it. So generally, keep it contained. That's usually a good.
So yeah, it's basically, even if you're going to innovate and do different services, keep them contained within your brand's your brand's ethos, and I love this, and some of you people watching is the 5 stages of accepting your position. And you may be going through some of these at the minute, which is denial.
It's the first one.
Denial's the first one, and I definitely went through that.
And people can live there forever, by the way.
Exactly. Maybe a little bit of anger, then it could be bargaining.
Yeah. Well, I can do a little bit of this. It's not too bad. I can kind of do that. No, it's okay.
Exactly. I think I was around there when we started talking, bargaining, like, no, maybe I can do these things. And then you sunk me straight into the depression stage. And then luckily, as I'm kind of a quick turnaround and went directly into acceptance, is this kind of the difficulty of what you do is going through things that are going to help people, but obviously getting this amount of resistance just from denial.
Sure. There's only so much you can do. There's some people who, like I said, people can live in denial forever, right? But in those 5 stages we took from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she wrote a great book years ago called Death and Dying.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's the death. And so it's like the death of a brand.
But it's really the death of a dream or the death of a vision that you think this is the way things work. Look, this is not the way it works.
Fantasy.
And people say, no, this is the way it works. Okay, they're in denial, and then eventually they get angry. But why? Why can't I do these things that I want to do? And then later on, they start bargaining. They go, well, maybe. And then eventually, maybe they get depressed. Oh, this is I shouldn't even do anything. It's like, no. Once you get to the last one, which is accepting it, you say, okay, here are the things that we can do well. Actually, we're pretty good at this. Yeah. Maybe we can focus on this. And you're going to get people, it's crazy because once you find these kinds of things that you're actually good at, either as an individual or as an organization, you're going to get not like 2 times the return. You're going to get 10 times, 100 times. It's exponential, the kinds of increase you can do, because you start focusing on your strengths.
Yeah.
If you can actually make it through all those stages and realize that, unfortunately, you're going to have to give some things up. Unfortunately, there's some dreams that are not going to happen for you, right? If you're 300 pounds and you're just sitting at home, eating Cheetos and Coke every day, chances are nobody's gonna call you and say, Bob, we need you at the Iron Man. We need the last guy. It's just not gonna happen. And it doesn't mean you can't lose some weight. It doesn't mean you can't, improve yourself. But you gotta really know where you are. What are the things you can really do? Yeah. And then based on that,
self-awareness.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the process of self-awareness.
So I think the principle to take away from that is you can deny all you want. You can deny and die. Or you can become stronger and realize and accept and grow in self-awareness and find ways to survive and to carry on growing. And a little plug there, carry on building.
Carry on.
And then carry on succeeding. This I love as well, because I think it's great for individual businesses, individual entrepreneurs and people that, especially in the social media era, trying to get themselves out there, which is this personal positioning map, which is, as said here, it's got like one of the pictures of the Adam type man, the Da Vinci Adam. And it's got talents, skills, education, experience, resources. Can you talk to us a little bit? I mean, I think we've kind of brushed across it, the personal positioning, and self-awareness essentially is what advice you'd give to people watching on how to position themselves and how to know themselves.
So when I have my personal coaching clients, a lot of times, we're working on their positioning of their company, of their product. But like I said, this is strategic, right? So you can apply it at all these different levels of analysis. Usually any company that's very, very successful has at least an individual or a series of individuals that understand, whether maybe just intuitively or explicitly positioning, and they go, okay, I'm going to position myself as an individual. Really, if you have a business or if you're doing any kind of project or idea, you have to figure out how to position that, but it all starts with yourself. If you don't know how to position yourself as an individual, you're sure as heck not going to be able to.
Why are you at the table?
Exactly.
What are you doing at the table? Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here? Type thing. And then they go bang, 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 bang. This is why I'm here,
So what we did is we broke things down into these 5 dimensions. One of them, only one of them being education. See, most of the time when people ask you, well, what do you do? People say, well, I'm a lawyer, or, I have an MBA, or, I do real estate, or whatever that might be. And so a lot of times education becomes a position, right? Now, it can be a part of a position. And certainly if you have
it certainly was 20, 30 years.
Exactly.
It was more so then that, okay.
Absolutely.
And then, okay, exactly what they did, because everything was kind of set out a lot more simply then.
Absolutely. But and again, this is all part of a filtration process, right? My business partner's brother, he's a big recruiter for people who, he recruits engineers, high-level science people that, get paid $300,000 a year, right? So big jobs. And he says, Gabe, at any given point, I have a stack this big of resumes in my desk at any given point. And what I do is I grab one and I have 5 seconds. And if in 5 seconds I don't see what I'm looking for, guess what? I'm going to put that one down and I'm going to go to the next resume. That's what I do.
And so is kind of the last point I wanted to get onto, because today we've been through the principles of, first of all, defining who you are, positioning yourself in the market, finding who you are as a person, being true to your brand and not being a bunch of different things, and then going through the denial stages. And then this is the most important part, which is the fine art of pivoting. So somebody's watching this and they've gone, shit.
This is...
Okay, what would you recommend them to do now? They've watched this and they've gone, okay, I think I need to make some changes. How would you, other than giving you a call, of course, or reading the book, which is...
Absolutely, read the book. Most businesses in the first 5 minutes. But, and again, this is all good, and there's a lot of important information there. But, so, when we talk about pivoting, and I mentioned that pivoting is a rotation around a center. So, you need to know what that center is. Generally, with my coaching clients, I want to know what their center is. and they're centered not only what motivates them or what they like, but also what they are intrinsically as a human, right?
Yeah.
For example, how many people do you know that they understand really well how they learn?
Yeah.
Like
or
they
who
know.
they are as a person.
Yeah.
Their self-awareness is,
Yeah.
these are my beliefs as a core,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly. Am I more of a money person, or am I more of a control person, or am I more of a power person? You know, what kind of person am I?
Yeah.
What are the things? What am I good at? You know,
Yeah.
most people have no idea. I hire people all the time. People with MBAs, people with finance degrees, people with marketing degrees, with business degrees, with art degrees, and I always I'm always baffled that I say, well, you know, have you read this? And they go, no. Have you read that? No. Okay. You know, do you know how to do this? Well, I've never done it, and we do some stuff, and they do miserable at it. And then whatever, right? And then they'll do something. They'll do a little thing, and I said, "What did you just do?" You know, I was like, "Oh, you know, I just sketched it. And we hired this person to help us do some of the promotion for the book, and she was doing some sketching out with a pencil, right?" And I was like, "Did you just draw this?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Wow, this is great. This is really good." And she's, "Oh, you know, I haven't drawn in I don't know how many years. I don't know. It's just a little something." And I said, "You know, this is really good. You should like spend time doing this." Well, you know, I just don't see how. And this happens very often because we tend to undervalue our talents because it's our talent. We feel that, well, everybody can do this, right? No, right? Just because it comes so easily to you, it seems like, wow, everybody should know, and that's not the way it works.
I think that's a massive point and a massive takeaway for people. There is there may be something that they have right now that they're hiding from their business that they could actually bring into it, which is just them. It's a quirky little thing. It's a quirky little talent that they could apply to what they're doing, and it's going to position them and make them stand out to a certain audience.
If they can accept it.
If they can accept it and be comfortable with it.
Yes.
I absolutely love
and that is a challenge, because most of the time we don't want to accept, right? Everybody wants to be unique, but nobody wants to be different.
Yeah.
Right? That's a quote in the book from my business partner, and that's exactly right. Most people they want to stand out, but when you stand out, you actually stand out.
Yeah.
Some people know they want to blend in when they want to, but then they want to stand out when they want more customers or more people to pay attention. Look, you can't have it both ways. Do you want to actually stand out? Okay, find what is in your core. What makes
be
that
yourself? Essentially, that's where I love. That's where it's coming from,
and that's what
matching it in a way.
And that's why personal brands do so good. When somebody says, "Well, Gabe, what should I do? Should I start a business or should I be my own brand?" I tell them, "Look, you're gonna have better and faster traction being you as a personal brand, right? You do, because you're an individual." And people tend to gravitate towards individuals, right? You know, nobody sits there and says, "Wow, if I could just meet Mr. IBM." Like, who's Mr. IBM? I don't know who Mr. IBM is, right? And so nobody thinks about companies like that. They think about individuals like that. Now, the downside of having a personal brand is that later down the road, and I have a couple of clients that were going through that process, how can we package what they have so that we can sell, let's say, that company, because maybe they want to retire or they want to go to the next project, right? We were talking about the other day. So that's the fundamental dichotomy between the two. But regardless of what you have, adding personality, right? That's why spokespeople do well. That's why because individuals by definition are uniquely positioned. You're not gonna find one individual that's the same as any other individual, but you will find companies that are exactly the same as other companies. In which case, the people in a market see, well, here's the
because they've only copied it anyway. There's only one innovative company, and then somebody goes, "Oh, that's working. Let's copy that," and then they.
But they're right away perceived as being the copycats.
And I think that's something really interesting to mention generationally, because before is jobs made people. Like, you had your lawyer type characteristic,
that was their position.
and because they were positioned and they learnt the language and they spoke it and they became the same, almost copy and pasteable. Sure. But now, when there's so much exposure on what's being done, now people are having to be in those categories and in that position, but also their own little spin on it. So I think that's probably a great takeaway for today. Like, for example, myself, I never thought his camera training would ever come back up being in business, but now as with everything going towards content driven, it comes all the way back around where it's like, oh wow, this thing that I learned that I never thought I'd ever use again, all of a sudden I can use it and give you a little bit of a standout, allows you to step away from the crowd. So I think that's what's interesting socially at the minute, that people are having to go back to being more individualistic while being still in these roles. And I think a lot of people are struggling. I was watching this thing the other day, which was, do you promote your company brand or your personal brand? And there's all these conversations where basically you've got to merge the two together somehow and create something unique, and that positions you to win. You like that? You like that?
Exactly.
So that's hopefully you guys took away some value today. Thank you so much, Gabe. I've certainly learned a lot, and I want you guys to hold me to it, because I've made some bold statements today of what I'm going to do and principles I'm going to take on, and things I'm going to do. So this is Most Businesses Fail. This is the latest version. I got 2 copies here. So this is the Most Businesses Fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 5 years to realize it. Position your business to win, and check out Gabe on Instagram and give him a follow. He'll be tagged in this, and then also on YouTube also. So thank you guys so much for watching, and carry on building, carry on growing, carry on succeeding, while positioning to win.